Is this a case of sour grapes?
Of course. Duh. Laimbeer has a well-deserved reputation for being a bad guy around the NBA. A guy you'd want on your team. But certainly if you face him, you hate him. He was not only that kind of competitor, but that kind of mentality of never giving an inch, of bending and even breaking the rules if it meant he could get an advantage. And here, he's still salty about the fact that he thinks their dynasty was cut short by Jordan. And by the way, when Jordan, first time Pippen hit his prime, they swept the Pistons like it was nothing. Even the previous year, the only reasons the Pistons won is because Pippen couldn't play in Game 7. And by the way, because Pippen really wasn't quite in his prime yet. It was his first year as an all-star, but you look at all the numbers, he jumped up the following year, all the significant statistical numbers like PER, stuff like that. And before that, when the Pistons won, you got to be kidding. It's because Jordan had nothing around him. So Laimbeer is lucky that they even won one. Because had Jordan been crewed up, the Pistons get not only exactly 0, they never get to a 7th game against the fully loaded Bulls squad. And he is salty about it.
I disagree. I don't think he's salty because I don't think he has a reason to be salty. Keep in mind that before the Jordan era began in terms of those championships in 1991, 88, 89, and 90, the Pistons beat the Chicago Bulls. They beat Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and those boys. That last year, 1990, that last year, 1990, was when Pippen had the migraine headache. Prior to that, the bad boys were just no joke. They were an elite team. And in 1991, when Jordan finally beat them in the Eastern Conference Finals and they were on their way, the Pistons were clearly on the downside. Isaiah Thomas had aged in the first 2 games. Hold on, I'm not finished. In the first 2 games of the finals, if you remember, Isaiah Thomas had a combined 21 points, had 11 in Game 1, 10 points in Game 2. He wasn't himself. Joe Dumars showed up. But Laimbeer and others, they just weren't the same anymore. They had been on a run. You have to remember, in the 80s, they were chasing the Boston Celtics, and the Boston Celtics had fended them off. One of my favorite moments that I ever watched was when they finally beat the Pistons, and they were going to the finals against the Lakers for the first time, and McHale had stood at midcourt and shook Isaiah Thomas's hand and was basically saying, all right, you got us finally. Now go get the chip. Go handle your business. It was a beautiful moment to see because it was a passing of the torch. The work that the Pistons had put in to go through Boston and then to beat Chicago and hold off Chicago.
That's the
by
story.
Beating them 3 years in a row. Come on now. There's no sour grapes after
story.
that. They
that's
dominated
the story.
them.
I know that's the narrative that's been sold to NBA fans, and I'm actually a Pistons fan. I hated Larry Bird. I hated the Celtics. I loved Isaiah Thomas, and I rooted for those Pistons teams against everybody. I really loved those teams. But I'm here to tell you the narrative you've been sold is simply incorrect on the facts. The Pistons didn't get anything till Larry Bird's back went out. That's right. They didn't do anything against L.A. till really Kareem was done.
Ignorant.
They were
that
lucky
is so
that
ignorant.
At the end of the Lakers-Celtics dynasty, once that ended, they had a window before. But Jordan had 0 All-Stars when the Pistons beat him. It was Michael Jordan and a cast of characters, none of whom were All-Stars. Then the Pistons could beat Jordan, and they had their hands full then.
That is not, you do it all the time. That is not the question. That's not the narrative. It's about sour grapes.
Well, the first season, Jordan got an All-Star. They went 7 games, and only because that All-Star wasn't available to him in Game 7 did the Pistons win. And then Jordan got crewed up and swept the Pistons, never to be heard from again. They were lucky. They existed. I hate to say this. I rooted for them. I love Isaiah and all those guys. They were lucky. They existed at the end of Lakers-Celtics and
that's
before
still
Bulls.
not the
He
question.
has sour grapes because Jordan ended them. He has sour grapes.
They felt like they were coming to an end even before. They felt like they were coming to an end even before they met Jordan. And by the way, your notion that the media has been sold this. Well, I don't know if you remember this. Bill Laimbeer used to work here. I know Bill Laimbeer. I've spoken to him about this on many occasions.
Sure.
Obviously, I know Isaiah Thomas. I spoke to him about Joe Dumars. I mean, this ain't no narrative that I read. I know the participants. I am telling you, their whole thing is they dominated Michael Jordan. They dominated the Bulls. They weren't worried about it. Your time comes and goes.
They dominated him.
Happens.
They dominated him when they were a team full of excellent players, and there was one great player on the Bulls and no other All-Stars. They felt they dominated them. As soon as Jordan got a little bit of help, the Pistons were done.
Did it compare? What Bill Laimbeer, they were bad boys. They were physical. They'd beat you up, but it wasn't like it was a squad rife with all-stars. You had Isaiah Dumas with Davidian and Microwave Johnson coming off the bench, but you didn't look at the Detroit Pistons as a bunch of all-stars. They were an elite team because they were physical. They beat you up, and they played together. And they defended.
They were an extremely well-balanced team led by an MVP caliber player in Isaiah, multiple all-stars on the team, and they were the greatest defensive team that I'd seen in my lifetime to that point. They were tremendous. And Jordan got rid of them as soon as he got a little bit of help. He got rid of them.
I know these people. Call them up and ask them. Bitter. Bitter about what? They dominated. They dominated.
It's all about sour grapes.
They dominated.
They're bitter about anybody.
You never
They're bitter
heard of
about
them if
Boston
Jordan had a crew back then.
Taking some of their shine.